YouTube. Welcome back to Overlord Alex Gaming. In today's video, I'm going to be putting together a returning player's guide covering everything that's changed in Dune Awakening over the past 6 months from the mid-game all the way into the endgame. Whether you've been away for a few months or you've been thinking about jumping back in before Chapter 4 launches, this video will get you caught up on all the major changes and show you exactly what you need to be focusing on, so let's just jump right into it. Let's start with some of the biggest changes Funcom has made since launch. Overall, they've put a good amount of effort into improving the game's performance. Personally, I've noticed a huge improvement on my own PC. Things like sandstorms don't freeze my computer nearly as much anymore, and many of the bugs and exploits that plagued the early game have since either been fixed or are currently on Funcom's radar. With the introduction of Chapter 3, we also received new story content and brand new PvE endgame activities. As with any major update, players quickly discovered several exploits and bugs within the new content, but Funcom has steadily been patching out these over the past few months, bringing more balance back to the game. One of the best additions for returning players is the base backup tool. Every 7 days, you can now back up your entire base, including water, power cells, and everything stored within the containers of your base. This means you can relocate your base, transfer servers, or even take a break from the game without worrying about keeping your base powered. The only catch is that if you do transfer servers, you'll want to dismantle all your vehicles before creating the backup and putting them into containers. Other than that, it's honestly one of my favorite quality of life features they've added. Another great addition is the cargo storage container. This lets you transport significantly more materials throughout Haga Basin, the Deep Desert, or back to Arrakis and Harka Village using your carrier Ornithopter. Personally, this has become one of my favorite additions because it allows you to have large farming runs and dramatically be more efficient. And it also, in addition to that, it's great for when you're actually trying to harvest flower sand, spice, or even titanium and strontium and transporting it back to your main base. If you're a returning player, you're probably wondering, what's PvP like these days? Funcom has now split the Deep Desert into 2 separate instances. One is completely PvE and contains the standard resource amounts that players were used to at launch. The second is a PvP instance that offers roughly 2.5 resource multipliers for valuable materials including spice sand, titanium, flower sand, and more. If your goal is to stockpile resources quickly, the PvP Deep Desert is absolutely where you want to be to farm. On lower population servers, you can often gather resources with very little interference. On busier servers, you'll definitely need to watch your surroundings, but compared to launch, there are far more opportunities for solo players and small groups to take advantage of the increased rewards. Funcom has also removed Ornithopter surfing, which I think was one of the better PvP changes they've made so far. That mechanic pushed a lot of new players away from the Deep Desert early on, so it's nice to see them actually make the change and make sure it's gone. Personally, I'd like to see them continue to evolve PvP by creating more meaningful objectives instead of encouraging random griefing, and hopefully the Polar Caps updates will move us in that right direction and maybe include things like an arena or even battlegrounds for us to do PvP in. Now, let's talk about the biggest gameplay addition, the Overland Testing Stations. Chapter 3 introduced 6 Overland Testing Stations so far that reward graded Tier 6 gear based on the difficulty level you completed at. The higher the station level, the better your chances of earning higher grade equipment up to grade 5. I've already made several guides covering these stations, including the order I recommend completing them, so if you're just reaching the end game, definitely check out these videos afterwards. Just keep in mind, the higher level stations are legitimately difficult, especially if you haven't invested much into the new Specialization System, which brings us to our next topic. One of the biggest progression systems added since launch is the Specialization trees. There are 5 different trees that provide huge bonuses to things like combat, gathering, crafting, inventory space, detection rate, Landshot progression, and much more. To level these trees, you'll primarily be completing Landshot missions. You can complete 5 missions each day, with unused missions stacking up to a maximum of 35. While this system definitely adds more grind, the bonuses are incredibly powerful. So if you're just returning, don't get discouraged. Every veteran player has had to work through the exact same progression so far, and trust me, it's pretty difficult sometimes to do. I'd also recommend farming as much spice as you can. Crafting high-grade equipment for the toughest Overland Testing Stations becomes extremely expensive, and having a healthy spice reserve makes progression much smoother. Depending on your risk tolerance, you can do this in either the PvE or PvP Deep Desert. Personally, if you're on a lower population server, I take advantage of the PvP multiplier. If you're on a highly populated server like Harmony, I'd be a bit more cautious if you're farming solo. I would usually do this in a duo or group. Let's talk about the current endgame. Right now, there are really three major endgame loops. The first is PvP, which has a higher barrier to entry now thanks to the Specialization System and recent land strat changes. The second is pushing increasingly difficult Overland Testing Stations for better graded Tier 6 gear. And finally, there's resource farming and base building. A lot of players enjoy optimizing production, collecting huge amounts of materials, and building massive bases to show off. Personally, I'm hoping the Polar Cap expansion introduces even more endgame activities so players have additional reasons to keep progressing and also to play the game. A couple final thoughts that I have for those that are just returning to the game and some helpful tips would be to always have good water production supplies. So whether it be increasing your capacity for wind traps or death stills or a combination thereof, and just having a certain amount of water depending on how much production you actually want to do is going to be very helpful when getting back into the game, whether it be in your tier 5 stage, tier 6, or beyond that when you're trying to do a lot of the overland testing stations and you're crafting a lot of high-end expensive gear. But getting the right materials and farming those, as well as having a good time along the way, I think is going to be the most important thing right now for Dune Awakening, as we're waiting for the new content to drop with the polar caps in the fall, and we'll see what happens in the fall as well with patch 1.5. We'll see if they drop anything else new that will surprise us. So until then, we'll see what happens in Dune Awakening. That's going to wrap it up for my returning players guide. If you found this video helpful and getting caught up, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments how long you've been away from Dune Awakening and whether you're planning to come back for Chapter 4. As always, thank you so much for watching and thank you for all your support, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.